Of course, Save America, Kill the Bill. And can we please get a Federal Reserve with a backbone? I've got a couple of thoughts on today's wussy Fed announcement that they're kind of going to move faster on tapering bond purchases, and there might be 3 little bitty rate hikes next year. And oh yeah, Jay Powell told the press conference he was confident inflation would drop to 2% by the end of next year. Really? Want to bet? On that bet, I'm going to take the under. You know who beat inflation forecasters around the country? The best #1 inflation forecaster. Senator Joe Manchin, numero uno. I don't even know if he talks to economists. But since last winter, when the $2 trillion Democrat so-called relief package was implemented, Joe Manchin has been warning about inflation. And that's why he has argued consistently all year that Biden's big government socialist bill should be paused until inflation is clearly falling, which, by the way, it is not. Consumer prices up 7%, producer prices up 10%. Today we got another whopper, a 12% rise in import prices. How about that one? Manchin, by the way, in his original memo to Chuck Schumer last summer, called for the end of QE, quantitative easing. In other words, no more bond buying, no more money creation. In fact, Joe Manchin makes me proud to have been a former Democrat, as was both of my presidential bosses, Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump. And you know what? If today's Democratic Party were full of Joe Manchins, we'd probably all still be Democrats. The guy's a superstar. He's also a better forecaster than several million economists, not to speak of the White House and the Fed, who bungled the inflation story, right? Manchin's also right in his policy ideas. Pause the bill and stop QE. But the Jay Powell Fed has been nosing in favor of more federal spending, haven't they? And today they had a chance to end QE, flatten its tracks, but he didn't do it. So to quote our friend Kevin Warsh, himself a former Federal Reserve governor who was on the show a couple nights ago, the Fed is still enabling massive government spending by buying up the debt and pumping up the money supply. Look, the Fed today should not only have ended QE, but they should have announced their intention to start raising their target rate next month, January. They missed a big opportunity to show strength and determination. You know, I think Democrat Larry Summers has it right. He said a while back, today's central bankers are more interested in climate change and woke social policies than fighting inflation. And then, as John Maynard Keynes said decades ago, inflation is the cruelest tax of all. It is middle income and lower income folks who get hurt the most with skyrocketing prices for food or energy, homes, construction, gasoline, meat, turkeys, you name it, it's across the board. The Fed right now is so far behind the 8 ball that, as former CEA chair Kevin Hassett told us last night, not only should they be raising rates immediately with a 50 basis point hike, they should take actions in between meetings to keep raising rates. And then, in a year or 18 months or so, inflation might start coming down. Now, finally, I have, shall we say, some unorthodox ideas for a new Fed chairman, if Joe Manchin won't take the job. Manchin would probably be my first choice. How about, hold on to your seats, Elon Musk? Elon Musk, Time Magazine's Man of the Year. How could I say such an outrageous thing? Well, I have several reasons. One of them is I worked with him several times in the White House, think he's very smart and very savvy. Second, the mere fact that socialist Elizabeth Warren is attacking him for not paying his, quote, fair share of taxes by itself is a fabulous endorsement of Musk's philosophy and business prowess. Well, am I saying anybody Warren opposes gets my stamp of approval? Yes, basically. I am tired of her left-wing, progressive, woke whining and her desire to tax and regulate anything that moves in business and the rest of the economy. Meanwhile, Musk, who is the biggest electric vehicle car seller in the country, get this, he has publicly said he does not want electric vehicles or batteries to be subsidized by the federal government. How about that? He's the biggest maker. He doesn't want Uncle Sam's money. Indeed, he has come out against the entire reckless tax and spend and regulate Biden policies. How's that? Completely unlike GM and the other unionist car makers. Musk, by the way, is a non-union shop, and he will not put his nose into the public trough. My kind of guy. I doubt if Elon talks to economists. He did speak to me, but he probably didn't know anything about my background, which is fine. It's probably why we got along so well. I think he's just a good, conservative, libertarian thinker. And incidentally, one last point. Musk has been selling about $3 billion worth of stock at the prevailing capital gains tax rate of 23.8%. Now, the Musk stock sale would generate or will generate $714 million of revenues to the federal government. It's got to be one of the biggest revenue windfalls in Uncle Sam's history, at least from one person. Now, that's called paying your fair share, Liz Warren. But my only trouble with it is I surely don't want to give you, Ms. Warren, another $714 million to spend on anything. Anything. So, folks, save America. Kill the bill.